for absence, I've had apologies from Councillor James Hill, Councillor Cecile Irving-Swift and Councillor Catherine Russell. Are there any more apologies from anybody? No other apologies. Okay, thank you. Any declarations of interest? No? Okay, thank you. Minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of December. The minutes of the 8th of January will follow next month. But are we happy with the minutes of the 4th of December? Are you happy for me to sign them?
Yes. Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Chair's announcements, there aren't any other than if you are speaking, I'll address you to come to the table and you have 3 minutes to speak. Beneath the television there are some lights. Green is you're good to go, amber is you've got 30 seconds left, and I'll have to ask you to stop when it gets to red. We have 3 public speakers tonight, so we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is application for determination, and we'll move on to 5A, which is 106 Purser Road. Oliver, this is yours, I believe.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. This presentation will largely summarise the contents of the officer's report with regard to the change of use of 106 Purser Road in Northampton from a 5-person house in multiple occupation to a 6-person house in multiple occupation. Change slide. The application site comprises a 2-storey plus basement mid-terrace property located along Purser Road to the northeast of Northampton Town Centre in a predominantly residential area. And that's shown on the plans on the screen. The existing property has planning permission to be occupied as a house in multiple occupation, HIMO, for 5 persons as shown on the existing floor plan. It has been extended at the rear to enlarge the communal living area. To the rear of the property is an enclosed outdoor communal amenity area, which under the previous permission has consent for secure cycle and bin storage to be located here. Change slide. The application seeks permission for a change of use from a 5-person HIMO to a 6-person HIMO. The proposal involves changing the communal living space into a 6th bedroom with an ensuite and altering the layout of bedroom 2 and associated ensuite. The communal kitchen would also be reduced in size to accommodate the ensuite for bedroom 6. 2 secure cycle parking stores are proposed within the rear amenity space of the property, along with a bin store, as per the previous permission. Change slide, please. And the key issues arising from the application include the principle of development, compliance with the houses in multiple occupation SPD, impact on the character and appearance of the area, impact on neighbouring amenity, and nature conservation. Change slide. With regard to Principle 1 of the SPD, the property is a permitted HIMO and therefore the concentration would not be increased. The previous concentration was assessed as 8.96% and officers are not aware of any increases in the number of other HMOs within the 50-metre radius of the application site. Therefore, the proposal would not exceed the maximum threshold. Change slide. With regard to Principle 2 of the SPD, provision of facilities and amenities, the property is of a sufficient size, providing room sizes in accordance with the Council's SPD, and an appropriate sized communal kitchen and adequate sanitary facilities. The locations and details of the refuse and recycling bin store have been provided, and with regard to Principle 3 of the SPD, flood risk, the application site is within flood zone 1 and is at a low risk of flooding, and the photos on the screen show the completed rear extension. Next slide. With regard to Principle 4 of the SPD, it was accepted as per the previous application that the application site is within a sustainable location. As assessed previously, the property falls outside of the 400-metre radius of a bus stop. However, at 550 metres from the closest bus stop with regular services, the property is considered to be within a sufficient walking distance of public transport. The property is also within the required distance of local facilities, and therefore it is considered difficult to sustain a reason for refusal purely on the grounds of bus stop proximity. The proposed development will produce a demand for 6 parking spaces, which is an increase of 1 space when compared with the approved use for a 5-bedroom HIMO. Secure cycle storage for up to 6 cycles has been shown to be provided within the rear amenity space of the property, and details of this storage have been provided within the application. Next slide. The only external alterations are the blocking up of an existing door at the rear of the property, which is considered a minor alteration. It is considered that the use of the HIMO in itself does not have an adverse effect on the character of the area. Next slide. The proposal is for a residential use. There is no evidence to suggest that the occupiers of a HIMO would create any more impact on amenity when compared with other residential occupiers in the area. Next slide. And the application site is within the buffer zone of the Upper Nene Valley Gravel Pit Special Protection Area. However, in this case, it is considered that the effect of possible recreational visits to the site from future occupants of the HIMO at a distance from the SPA of over 2 kilometres would be minimal in comparison to that likely to result from the use of the existing property. A financial contribution towards the strategic access management and monitoring is not considered to be justified in this case. On balance, the proposed development is considered acceptable without having an undue adverse impact on highway safety, residential amenity or flood risk, and would not result in an over-concentration of similar uses. And therefore, this application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. We have 2 speakers on this. So first of all, Councillor Zoe Smith. If you've got a question for the officer, ask it now. Yes, please.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to know why you put in the planning application on the back a picture, a diagram of the property here, which is useless to me because I have to drive down Percy Street to see what it is. I would much rather like to see what the diagram of what the building's going to be like in future, so I can see the sizes of the rooms and the layout rather than just the picture of that. To me, this is...
We always have just a map to show where the property
I know,
is.
but I would like, if you've got those pictures...
But we can look on online for the
Okay.
application.
I'll have a look online next time. I get sent the papers, so I can look on those. The other point I'm making, the alterations look as though they've already started.
So the alterations internally are for the relating to the application that's already been approved for the 5-bed.
So basically, people don't wait to come to us. They just plough ahead and do the alterations themselves. And the second thing I wanted to point out is if there's 6 people in the property and now the communal space is smaller, so you've got a smaller communal space for an extra person. So how does that work out?
So in terms of the alterations that have already undertaken, they're relating to the permission that's already been granted for the 5-bed HMO.
Okay.
And in terms of the communal space, that all meets with the SPD as set out within the report.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to know why it's all going ahead and we haven't been given permission yet.
Okay, right. Okay, so I'm not sure where Ed's gone, but hopefully Councillor Zoe Smith will be joining us online.
Chair, just while we're waiting, can I just ask a quick question?
Please do.
Thank you. Did you ask why they didn't apply for it all at once? Why doing it in this graduated way? It doesn't seem particularly upfront.
Okay, are you able to hear me?
Hold on a minute, Councillor Smith. We've just got a question from Councillor Frost.
Okay, no worries.
What do you make of it?
I mean, we're obviously determining the application that's before us. So previously they submitted the application for 5 beds and now they've come in for the 6 beds, regardless of,
No, but my
of
question
how
is,
that's come about.
did you ask, and if so, what did they say?
I didn't ask about that intention. I didn't feel that necessary. We'll look at the application on its own merits.
Okay, so back to Councillor Smith then. You've got 3 minutes to address the committee.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, and apologies if some of what I say doesn't take into account what's been said in the room, as unfortunately I've not been able to hear it. My name's Zoe Smith. I'm one of the councillors for Abington Fixville and I'm speaking against this application. Our main concern is that less than a month after the planning committee approved this application for 5 people, it came back through as an application for 6. And a lot of the tone and the wording of the officer's explanation is that it is actually just an increase of one, and in fact it was a 6-person HMO all along, and the planning committee might have looked at the application differently had it been a case of looking at a 6-person application initially. Also, some of the comments made within the description of the application say that a 6-person HMO for unrelated adults is very similar to a family situation in which you have 2 adults and 4 children. And I'm sure there are loads of ways in which the planning committee can understand that that isn't the case at all. And that actually in terms of coming and going, times of the day that people will be coming in and out of the property, the impact on parking, the impact on rubbish, the pressure on the kitchen facilities, that's not the case at all as it would compare to a family that had 2 adults and 4 children. I'd also like to remind the planning committee that the planning inspectorate has historically upheld concerns about a planning application where they're in Wycliffe Road, where it was a HMO for 6 people. So there is precedent to this. There would be a huge impact in terms of parking capacity and safety. And I think the planning committee should take into account the fact that this is 6 people, not a minor increase of 1. And also that the kitchen facilities are not appropriate for the number of residents. And there is no communal living space as a result of the approved changes, which is not appropriate. So apologies for the slightly odd presentation, but I think we've got a number of concerns and I'd like the planning committee to consider this for what it is, which is a 6-person HMO application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Just remain there while I see if anyone's got any questions for Councillor Smith. No? Okay, thank you, Councillor Smith. Okay, I'll call on Matthew McBean, who want to come and join us and address the committee, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to introduce myself as the owner of this property. I am a portfolio landlord and am from Northampton myself. It is my full-time occupation and I take great pride in offering the highest standard of accommodation to families and also HMO properties where appropriate. The construction works for this scheme commenced at the beginning of October. We built a small extension to the rear under permitted development because there was already substantial structural and excavation work being done in this location for the new drainage and to unexpectedly rebuild the external wall, which was found to be structurally defective. It was an opportunity that would otherwise be lost, and this new space is now presented as part of this proposal. The project has evolved, as they often do, and in this case to offer another large ensuite bedroom. I therefore consider the councillor's speculative comments suggesting that this proposal represents some sort of dishonesty on my part as inappropriate. I have been managing HMOs for 15 years, and I have a very good understanding of the best format for their design to suit the tenants' needs. Communal kitchens are used by all occupants for functional purposes and casual interaction, but any additional living rooms are not generally used. I insist on only offering larger ensuite bedrooms, as in this case, which the tenants prefer to retreat to for relaxing. The proposed kitchen design that you see is purely indicative. The actual kitchen design has now been thoughtfully drawn up and has a table and seating area. It will fully comply with the council's licensing requirements, which include the addition of extra cooking and storage facilities to accommodate 6 people. It is in actual fact 30% larger than the 10 square metres which is required to conform for licensing a 6-person HMO and has been approved during consultation with private sector housing. I therefore reject the councillor's objection that it is too small. Layout and design form a very important part of my HMOs, as I always ask myself, would I be able to live here? Would I enjoy living here? Does the space work? And if the answer isn't yes, then I simply don't develop it. I manage all of my properties and meet all my applicants for my HMO rooms personally. There is a rising demand in Northampton for the higher standard en-suite rooms for young professionals. These people form an important and integral part of our local community and economy. They are, in the vast majority of cases, non-car owners and wish to live in a sustainable central location like this one. This proposal will offer another large ensuite bedroom for one of them to enjoy. The planning officer has visited this property recently and seen firsthand the sheer size of the space being thoughtfully created. He has recommended this application for approval and clearly states that the addition of this one large ensuite room will not result in overdevelopment, nor will it have a material impact on the neighbouring amenity. I would therefore appreciate if you would consider the overwhelming merits of this proposal and support its approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Just remain seated, and I'll see if anybody's got any questions. Councillor Barrett.
Yeah, thank you for that. I recall many parts of that speech that you just made there. You've used that before. I've got concern primarily with the parking. I don't accept what you've said there in terms of parking. I think we're adding, when you look at the street view there, having had this discussion with you before, this for me, again, doesn't have infrastructure for more parking. So I don't necessarily accept that the additional car space is a given that they're not going to be a car user. So my concern, where have you come from with that view? Maybe you could tell us in terms of your other properties you said in that area, how many drive, how many don't drive?
Good question. I've got one around the corner in Derby Road. There are 5 people living there, and they are welfare workers, they work at the hospital, as a teacher. Not one of them has a car. Now, in the past, there has been maximum of 2. And that is typical ratio, I would say. And I know that there is a lot of weighting given to parking, but from my experience, I can genuinely confirm that most of them don't have cars, and they choose to live in these locations because they are central and have all the amenities and transport links on their doorstep.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Beardsworth, I'll come round.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. And
okay.
I just wanted to know, you're asking for an extra bedroom, an extra tenant to move in, and yet you've reduced the size of the communal space. Could you tell me why you did that? Because if you've got one extra person, surely you'd need a bigger space rather than a smaller space. And, you know, not everybody wants to spend all their time in the bedroom. You know, I have worries about people's mental health, isolationism, and those sort of things. And I'm sure you take that into consideration, being a good landlord.
Very much so, yes. So, as I say, the scheme has evolved. The rear wall forming the side of the kitchen was pulling outwards because there was a chimney that was defective, so it all had to come down and be rebuilt. At the same time, we put a large set of French doors in place of a small kitchen window, which offers much better access to the garden from the kitchen and also lets in a lot more natural light. And the seating area is designed to be just there very strategically so that it will be enjoyed by the tenants. As I've said in the speech, and this is very genuine, I've provided separate living rooms for tenants before, and they just don't use them. They simply walk through them and they congregate in the kitchen to socialise and use the facilities. And the rooms that I'm offering with this proposal, all the bedrooms are larger than the minimum 10 square metres that are the standard requirements. They're all larger than that. They all have ensuite facilities. I put a small fridge in there and a small area for with a kettle, and so they can make tea facilities. And it's all very thoughtfully designed with built-in wardrobes to maximise the space, as the planning officer will confirm on his visit. A lot of effort and is gone into designing these, and they genuinely do go back more often than not to relax in their rooms.
Thank you very much. Penny, do you have a question? No? Peter? Rupert.
Yeah, thank you. You said in your speech that I think the words you used were an opportunity presented itself. Please, can you elaborate on that? Was it what happened? Was it did you discover some new space? Was it a moment of clarity? What happened?
It was a head-scratching moment. As I said, the wall to the side of the kitchen had to be rebuilt, which is the exact location of where, and there was significant excavation for the foul drainage for the ensuite rooms that we were already putting in. So the footings were there, the wall was there, and under permitted developments, it was just a small scheme. So I scratched my head and thought, well, the communal space was always too big at 25 square metres in my mind, so just as I've just alluded to for the previous scheme. So I thought, well, we offer another ensuite bedroom. It's over 11 square metres, this room, that we're left with an ensuite, which is larger than is required. And the kitchen area that we're left with is, again, 30% larger than the minimum required. And it's been designed, so it just seemed logical under the circumstances.
Chair, through you, the head scratching thing, was that before or after the last application was approved?
Well, after, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah, it was during all this large amount of structure work that we're doing was right in the location where we built under permitted developments this small, and it just...
That's like an afterthought, yeah. Okay,
most definitely.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cribben, you got a question? No. Peter? No. Anything? Thank you very much. Thank you. That's it. Okay. Anything you want to come back on there, Oliver?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'll open it up to comments then. Harry?
Yeah, just for me, I understand the statistics that I asked about 2 out of 5 potentially have cars. There may be 5, there may be 6 here. I think the infrastructure there isn't set up for another car potential. I don't think that it's reasonable to expect a road to potentially have another one on top of that. So I won't be supporting this. I think we've got to, when we pass things like this, we've got to ensure the local area is able to facilitate it. The infrastructure is right and ready and safe. And for me, from what I've seen, it isn't to add that additional one. So that's my view on that.
Okay, cool. Any further comments?
I'd echo that.
Okay. Okay. The officer's recommendation is for approval. Does anybody want to propose to accept the officer's recommendation? Councillor Flavel, and seconded by Councillor Matton. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4 in favour. Against? 2 against and 1 abstain. So that application is passed. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to item 5B, which is 46 Queen Street, Weedon. And Chung, this is yours.
It is, thank you, Chair. Before we begin, members, I would like to draw attention to some very late representations that have been received, that the members' call-in has been withdrawn. But as the application is on the agenda, members are required to consider the application before them tonight. If I could please start with the photographs, Ed, that'd be great. You'll see there that the property itself is in the centre of Weedon, well within the confines of the village. And when we move to the photographs, you'll be able to see that dwelling itself is a very, very modest single-storey bungalow within the Weedon Conservation Area. The remainder of the Weedon Conservation Area is made up of mainly 2-storey dwellings, which are very close to the frontage. So in this case, you could say this particular bungalow is a bit of an anomaly in the street scene. But what it does do is it does allow views out of the conservation area across into the open countryside, and it forms a very subservient feature within the existing street scene. The application for members tonight seeks to simply extend the bungalow to the east and west by extending the existing ridge line and creating 2 very balanced gables to the frontage and to extend to the rear as well. You'll see from the photographs as well that the land to the back of the bungalow drops quite significantly, and what the agents has tried to do here is take advantage of those dropping land levels and to create an additional floor by rooms within using that space. The application has been subject to some revisions, and in the previous submission, the original submission, there was a garage in front of the existing bungalow with rooms above it as well, and that raised concerns from both the Highway Authority and from the Heritage officers as well. As a result of these amendments, that particular element has been completely removed from the scheme, and the application before members' night simply seeks the extensions and alterations to the bungalow itself. So the matters of consideration, which were the heritage impacts, the impacts on traffic and highways, the impact on residential amenity, the majorities have all been addressed through the revised scheme. So the concerns have been addressed, and accordingly we're recommending for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. To keep in line with the previous application, any questions to the officer at this time? Peter, you've got a question.
Thank you. Am I right in thinking then there is no objector to this planning application?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's no objector. So we have 1 public speaker, Tarquin Milliken? Oh, sorry. I'd like to come and address us. You've got 3 minutes to address the committee, and then just remain seated and we'll see if anybody's got any questions.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors. I'm the agent for the application and also the architect for this proposal. We've always understood that this is quite a sensitive site, and so from the outset we've taken a sympathetic approach to the design and layout to ensure that the scheme is appropriate for this location. Throughout the planning process, we've also worked closely with the case officer to ensure that the scheme is acceptable, and following recent revisions to the application to remove the frontage garage and workshop, she is now satisfied that the proposal fits into the surrounding pattern of development and respects the character of the conservation area. During the planning process, a number of consultation responses were received. The local highway authority have been reconsulted in relation to access, car parking and highway safety, and they now find that the proposal is acceptable and have raised no objections. The council's heritage officer has also been reconsulted, and she has raised no objections. The council's strategic housing team were also consulted, and they are in support of the application. We do note that Weedon Parish Council and just one local resident had previous concerns about the original proposal, which are set out and addressed in detail in the office's report. Concerns relating to the frontage garage and workshop have now been addressed, as this element has been completely removed from the scheme. Previous comments about highway safety and access have also now been addressed to the satisfaction of the highway officer. There were some comments about a garden shed. We don't feel they're particularly relevant to this application, as an approval was given for that shed under a separate application last year. A concern about overlooking from the rear balcony has also been addressed through the incorporation of an opaque glass screen to the side elevation. On the whole, your planning officer's report is extremely thorough. It sets out very clearly how the proposal is acceptable and meets all of the council's planning policy guidance, residential amenity standards and highway access standards. Her recommendation is for approval, and I respectfully ask that members follow this advice and approve the application this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just remain seated and see if anyone's got any questions. No questions. You're free to go. Thank you. Okay. Anything you want to come back on there? Anything to add? Any comments then? Any of the committee members?
Can I register to speak before it goes to vote?
Yes.
I'll do that. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Rupert, over to you then.
Thank you. There's a number of conditions that are recommended. I guess I need to put this in the form of an amendment, do I, or can I do it more informally? I would like to stipulate that the other conditions are met. For example, the heritage one, where it says if the revised plans are considered to be acceptable, I would recommend conditions be attached to, relating to all that sort of stuff, as well as the highways ones. There are more recommendations. There are more highways recommendations than there are conditions. Could we put them in sync?
Can I just come back to you on the highway conditions? What I've done is I've incorporated the highway conditions which are appropriate and meet the tests in terms of scale and in proportionality. What we've got to remember is through the amended scheme, what they've done is that they've brought it back to the original access point. So effectively, previously, they had a revised access point because of the new garage building, but that's no longer the case. So on the current application, that is an existing access.
Thank you. You're saying that the highways recommendations are effectively sort of out of date in that sense?
I don't think that we can apply them to an existing access which is already being used for the purpose of an existing dwelling.
Thank you.
Bearsworth.
Can I propose we accept the officer recommendations?
Anybody want to second it? Councillor Bryson. Councillor Matton. All those in favour? So that's 6 in favour, against, abstain, and 1 abstention. So that application is approved. Okay. No further items on the agenda and no urgent business, so thank you very much for your attendance.